I've said this before, but I will say it again. If you could only focus on one thing to improve your drawing skills, it should be your warm-ups. So I put together a really quick practice routine that you can do either before a drawing session or just on a day where you don't have the time to really draw but still want to practice and improve. And if you've been on the channel for a little while, you probably know that I did a similar routine a year and a half ago and people absolutely loved it. So I want to give you alternative exercise if you are getting a little bit bored of the original ones. And to make it extra fun, I also turned this practice routine into a challenge with a bunch of prizes that you can win. So make sure you stick around until the end to learn more about that. But for now, grab your drawing tools and let's warm up. Now, if you're new to warming up before drawing, you might feel like the exercise I'm going to show you might look a little bit silly at first glance, but as we go through these exercises, I'm also going to share with you exactly what they're doing for your hand, your arm, and your brain. So if it feels a little bit silly the first time, it's totally normal, just stick with it. And speaking of silly, the first one is probably the one that feels the most pointless, but it's also probably the most important. And it is going to be drawing straight lines for around 30 seconds. So I'm going to add a timer if you want to follow along. I'm going to give you tips as we go, and I'm also just going to do it at the same time as you do. Now, the goal of this first exercise is really just to have the best drawing movement possible. When you're drawing, you don't want to draw with the flick of a wrist. You want to lock your wrist and draw with your whole arm. So from the elbow to the shoulder, to the hand, one big part. That's not only going to protect your wrist from injuries over time, it's going to give you drawings that have a lot more movement and look much better overall. And so again, to practice this, all you're doing is drawing straight lines, or as straight as possible at least, from top to bottom, bottom to top, left to right, and right to left. And you're probably going to find that some directions are way easier than other. For the ones that are a bit harder, make sure you keep your shoulder very loose. If you get any tension, that is not good. So the second exercise is going to be to practice the hand-eye coordination. And I really like this exercise because it is such a good reality check. It is not because we know we want to draw something, we can see it in our brain, that our hand is necessarily going to draw it. Now, the exercise itself is very simple. You're just going to draw 2 dots on the page and connect them with a horizontal line. And then you're just going to add a few dots all over the place. So I'm going to start with just one here. And then starting from one of the ends of the horizontal line, you're just going to create a curve or an arch that goes through that dot. And we're going to do this exercise for roughly a minute. And the most important thing here is not necessarily to go through the dot, although that is the goal. It is to make sure you keep your shoulder very, very loose, your arm in the right position, and you tell your brain that you're aiming to go through the dot. Now, the third exercise is going to require you to have some sort of pressure sensitivity. So if you're working digitally like me, make sure you have a pressure sensitive pencil like the Apple Pencil and a pressure sensitive brush. Now, if you don't have that, not a problem. Just pick a random scrap of paper as well as a normal pencil for this exercise. We're just going to create gradients in a bunch of different directions to practice having better control over our drawing tools. Exercise 4 is also a very fun one. It is also to practice hand-eye coordination as well as observation. So here we're simply going to start by drawing a scribble on one side of the page, it doesn't matter which one, and then we're going to quickly try to recreate that scribble on the other side of the page. And the goal here is to be quick enough that you have time to repeat the exercise a few times. And I think this exercise is also a very good reality check in the sense that even if it is something you drew yourself, it is not necessarily the easiest to recreate it. So when you're trying to draw a real illustration and not just a scribble and you're struggling, remember this exercise and remember how hard it is to just recreate a few lines perfectly. And the final exercise is probably my favorite because we're going to be working on creativity as well as seeing how shapes can come together to create more complex elements. So once more, we're going to start with a scribble, but this time it's going to be all over your page. And you might have done this as a child, at least I did. That was one of my favorite games. You're going to try to find either an object, an animal, a face, whatever you can visualize in your scribble, and then you're going to use that as a base for a very simple illustration. And the goal with this exercise is really not to end up with your best illustration ever. Just pick the first thing you see and roll with that. And it's also completely possible that you won't see anything in your lines within the time allowed. If that's the case, don't beat yourself up. You can just rewind the video, start over at the start of the exercise, and draw a new scribble and try again. It's time to talk about the challenge in the giveaway. Now, these 5 exercises, although they are very simple, if you implement them in your routine and do them daily, you're going to see some improvement in your art, whether it is better control over your shading or even just straighter lines for your outlines and stuff like that. So I'm going to challenge you to start the year on the right foot with your art practices by doing some sort of a warm-up daily. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I also have another practice routine, so if you want to alternate between both, that might be a little bit more fun. For anyone who wants to take on the challenge of doing some sort of a warm-up daily throughout the entire month of January of this year, 2023, I will be giving away a few prizes like brush packs as well as illustration courses. And the way to enter is very simple. You just share whatever screenshot or picture of one of the exercises that you did, whether it is from this practice routine or my previous one, which I will link in the description below, by the way, sharing that on Instagram in your story and tagging me at Genevieve Design Studio, as well as using the hashtag 30 days of digital art. So that means if you practice every day and share every day in your story, you have 31 chances to win. So I'm going to randomly pick 10 winners throughout the month that are going to be able to go on my store and pick a brush pack or bundle of their choice. And I will also pick one winner every Friday throughout the month of January that is going to win my illustration course. Now, all those details, all that information, as well as the official giveaway rules are going to be within the video description below, so make sure you go ahead and check those. And I'm looking forward to practicing along with you throughout the entire month of January.